But somehow the people, they don't care. Just doesn't seem fair. Your brother because you got long hair.
Warning, it's just a crazy old conspiracy. If you see something, so did someone else. And you're not crazy, they just want you to be. How about you? Do your own research. Hey everybody, today we'll take a look at the certain strange and or coincidental connections to the military and our counterculture movement of the 1960s. Everything you think that's organic is actually rotten from the inside out. Wait, and you'll see. All this information is basically coming from David McGowan's book, Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon, Laural Canyon, Covert Ops, and the dark heart of the hippie dream. This shit's wild. So let's check it out.
In August 1964, an American destroyer, the USS Maddox, on patrol in the Gulf of Tonkin, exchanged fire with North Vietnamese torpedo boats.
The President has asked that the destroyer force be doubled and that an air cap, a combat air patrol, be available at all times on call to it. And as I think you know, he's issued instructions that in the event of a further attack upon our vessels in international waters, we are to respond with the objective of destroying the attackers.
2 days later, the ship's captain thought he was again coming under attack.
And so we have an attack, which is a false flag attack, which is, hey, you attacked us, so we're going to attack you. But you didn't really attack us, but we're still going to attack you, kind of thing. So we don't care. And the ship's captain was none other than George Stephen Morrison, who is the papa to Jim Morrison of The Doors. One might think that's a strange coincidence,
Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father.
He told me enough. He told me you killed him.
No. I am your father.
Say what?
One of the pilots was not so sure.
Well, I was over those destroyers for over an hour and a half, below 1,000 feet, lights off, watching everything they did. I could hear them chatting on the radio, the Maddox and the Joy. They seemed to have some intermittent radar targets. I took it upon myself to get out there where they thought a boat was and try to kill it if they didn't. But it was fruitless. And I'd go down there and there was nothing.
Ignoring the conflicting evidence, the Pentagon insisted there had been a second attack.
In retaliation for this unprovoked attack on the high seas, our forces have struck the bases used by the North Vietnamese patrol craft.
Johnson used the incident to push the Tonkin Gulf Resolution through Congress. It would allow the president to wage war in Vietnam.
It wasn't just a war in Vietnam. It was here at home as well.
When he ended up in rock music, I was absolutely flabbergasted. Well, basically, he was a good man. He's a good, solid citizen.
Jim Morrison was indeed a most unique individual, and quite possibly the unlikeliest rock star to ever stumble across a stage. Morrison eventually arrived on the scene as a fully developed rock star, complete with a backing band, a stage persona, and an impressive collection of songs. Enough, in fact, to fill the Doors' first few albums. How exactly he reinvented himself in such a radical manner remains something of a mystery, since before his sudden incarnation as singer-songwriter, James Douglas Morrison had never shown the slightest interest in music, none whatsoever. He certainly never studied music, and could neither read nor write it. By his own account, he never even had much of an interest in even listening to music. He told one interviewer that he never went to concerts, one or two at most. And before joining the Doors, he never did any singing. I never even conceived of it. Asked near the end of his life if he had ever had any desire to learn to play a musical instrument, Jim responded, "Not really." So here we had a guy who had never sang, who had never even conceived of the notion that he could open his mouth and make sounds come out, who couldn't play an instrument and had no interest in learning such a skill, and who had never much listened to music or been anywhere near a band, even just to watch one perform, and yet he somehow emerged virtually overnight as a fully formed rock star who would quickly become an icon of his generation. Even more bizarrely, legend holds that he brought with him enough original songs to fill the first few Doors albums. Morrison did not, you see, do as other songwriters do and pen the songs over the course of the band's career. Instead, he allegedly wrote them all at once, before the band was even formed. As Jim once acknowledged in an interview, he was not a very prolific songwriter. Most of the songs I've written, I wrote in the very beginning, about 3 years ago. I just had a period when I wrote a lot of songs. In fact, all of the good songs that Morrison is credited with writing were written during that period, the period during which, according to rock legend, Jim spent most of his time hanging out on the rooftop of a Venice apartment building, consuming copious amounts of LSD.
We've produced a short educational film. Lights!
Hello, I'm Eugene Levy, and yes, I'm an actor. No, I said cappuccino. I'm here to talk to you about something very important. No, it's not about me or my career. I'm here to talk about subliminal messages in rock and roll music, or as it's simply known in some cultures, rock music. You see, for years, the government has been wisely coercing teenagers to buy products they normally wouldn't want just to get their money. Fact, kids don't have bills to pay. Fact, they don't pay taxes. But they do babysit and hold minimum wage jobs that earn them wads of cash as thick as, well, my body of work. But these kids today aren't dumb. They're not going to buy just anything. That's why the government has been planting small subliminal advertising suggestions in today's rock music. The results? We can now get these kids to buy just about anything. We can have them chasing a new trend every week. And that is good for the economy. And what's good for the economy is good for the country. So God bless the United States of America, the most ass-kicking country in the world.
But how can you control the rock bands? What if they find out about the hidden messages in their music?
Ever wonder why so many rock stars die in plane crashes? Overdose on drugs? We've been doing this a long time. If they start to get too curious, our options are endless. Bankruptcy, shocking scandals, religious conversions. We've created a highly rated TV show just to explain what happens to these people.
And you would think that was fake. That's kind of how it is.
They keep saying that. Wait, what was that? Uncle Sam? Let me play this backwards.
Join the Navy. Join the Navy.
They're recruiting people with subliminal messages. Otto, what are you doing?
I don't know. I just got an urge to join the Navy.
You're being brainwashed.
Yeah, probably. Yvonne Niage.
The mamas and the papas were all into this. And were they brothers and sisters, uncles, and what else? Anyways, their leader, a man named John Phillips. John Phillips also moved to Laural Canyon and played a major role in spreading the emerging counterculture across America. Phillips helped organize a Monterey Pop Festival and wrote the popular song San Francisco, which were both instrumental in luring the disaffected to the San Francisco area to create the Haight-Ashbury phenomenon and the 1967 Summer of Love. Not surprisingly, John Phillips was the son of U.S. Marine Corps Captain Claude Andrew Phillips and attended a series of elite military prep schools in the Washington, D.C. area, culminating in his appointment to the U.S. Naval Academy at Annapolis.
If you're going to San Francisco, be sure to wear some flowers in your hair. If you're going to San Francisco, you're gonna meet some gentle people there. For those who come to San Francisco, summertime will be loving there. In the streets of San Francisco, gentle people with flowers in their hair. All across the nation, such a strange vibration. People in motion. There's a whole generation with a new explanation. People in motion. People in motion. All those who come to San Francisco, be sure to wear some flowers in your hair. If you come to San Francisco, summertime will be loving there. If you come to San Francisco, summertime will be loving there.
David Crosby was one of Laurel Canyon's most flamboyant residents and a founding member of the Byrds, as well as Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Crosby is the son of World War II military intelligence officer, no kidding, and Annapolis graduate Major Floyd Delafield Crosby. Crosby's family tree includes numerous U.S. senators and congressmen, governors, mayors, Supreme Court justices, members of the Continental Congress, and a high-ranking Mason. If there is a network of elite families that have shaped national and world events for generations, it is likely that David Crosby is a bloodline member of that network. The three members of the band America, Gary Beckley, Dan Peake, and Dewey Bunnell, were also Laurel Canyon residents whose fathers were all members of, guess what, the military intelligence community. The three met near London, where the fathers worked at a U.S. Air Force base, a facility deeply involved in intelligence operations. Mike Naismith of the Monkees and Corey Wells of Three Dog Night both arrived in Laurel Canyon after serving with the, you guessed it, U.S. Air Force. Graham Parsons, who briefly replaced David Crosby in the Byrds, was also a Laural Canyon resident and the son of a decorated military officer, bomber pilot. Frank Zappa was Laural Canyon's father figure during the early years of its heyday. Although many of the recording artists were obscure, some such as psychedelic rocker Alice Cooper went on to superstardom. Zappa's father was a chemical warfare specialist assigned to the Edgewood Arsenal near Baltimore, Maryland. The Edgewood Arsenal is a longtime home of America's chemical warfare program and is frequently cited as being enmeshed in MK-Ultra operations. That's a big thing there. MK-Ultra. Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys bought his first real home in Laural Canyon in 1965. Wilson was heavily influenced by the work of Phil Spector, whose crack team of studio musicians, dubbed the Wrecking Crew, provided the instrumental tracks for countless albums by Laural Canyon bands. This is where the shocker is. What do they do? 2 in the pink, 1 in the stink.
When we're ready to sing, we step up the microphones, and it comes out something like this.
We came in the studios with Levi's and t-shirts, smoking cigarettes. The older guys were saying they're going to wreck the music business.
In the hardcore producing area, everybody knew what went on there. I mean, everybody knew that the best musicians played in all the sessions, but we as the general public didn't know.
They played so well, and they played so well together.
I was in awe of them because of Phil Spector. I pulled my car over the side of the road and said, what am I listening to here?
The musicians were really the unsung heroes of all those hit records.
When I listen to the records, it is so apparent that these guys were just really so good. And you can see why everybody used them. The Wrecking Crew was the focal point of the music. They were the ones with all the spirit and all the know-how.
We made up a lot of arrangements ourselves.
We would either augment or totally replace a group.
The public was oblivious that there was this secret star maker machinery.
I had no idea that people didn't play their own records until the Monkees came along.
We were so busy.
I was making more money than the President of the United States.
7 records of the year.
It was unbelievable.
Here's the way that The Beat Goes On sounded when we first heard it. La-di-da-da-da. Yeah, that's all. The third line I came up with was...
The beat goes on.
They were the stone cold rock and roll professionals, and there may never be a group of that caliber again.
It's all fake. Wow.
This is going to break your heart, but much of the music you heard in the 60s and early 70s wasn't recorded by the people you saw on the album covers. It was done by me and the musicians you see on these walls. Many of these kids didn't have the chops and were little more than garage bands. At concerts, people hear with their eyes. Teens cut groups slack in concert, but not when they bought their records. Hal Blaine, longtime drummer for the Wrecking Crew, quoted in the Wall Street Journal on March 23, 2011.
A little less conversation, a little more action. All this aggravation ain't satisfaction in me. A little more bite, a little less spark. A little less bite, a little more spark. Close your mouth and open up your heart. Satisfy me. Satisfy me, baby.
Just happened so, run across Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and you're always going to watch, just bits and pieces of that. And so came across this scene, and Sharon Tate's coming out. And what do we have there? The Wrecking Crew. Now, it's not the same, but we get the gist of it. But it's right in our faces. David McGowan wrote, "Let's wrap up this chapter with a quick review of what we have learned about the people populating Laurel Canyon in the mid to late 1960s. We know that one subject of residence was a large group of musicians who all decided nearly simultaneously to flood into the canyon. The most prominent members of this group were, to an overwhelming degree, the sons and daughters of the military intelligence community. We also know that mingled in with them were the young stars of Hollywood, who were also, to an astonishing degree, the sons and daughters of the military intelligence community. And finally, we know that also in the mix were scores of military intelligence personnel who operated out of the facility known as Lookout Mountain Laboratory. We'll get into that. I've got to say, given the relatively small size of Laurel Canyon, I'm beginning to wonder if there's any room left over for normal folks who might have wanted to live the rock and roll lifestyle."
This one rumor that you live in a military building, like an old military complex that you sort of took over, and that's where you live. And I want to believe that's true because it's one of the coolest things I've ever heard. Is it true?
It is true. And thank you for bringing it up because now even more people will come to the house to say hello. But yeah, I bought an old Air Force base. It's a former top secret Air Force base. And it has an incredible history. It's in the Hollywood Hills. If you need my address, I'll send it to you after the show. You could come by.
I think you mean that, actually.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, it must be. I mean, what a great idea. You live in this. Are there cool steel doors that can close?
There actually are. Yeah, there are former vaults in the place that are labeled like top secret access, and yeah, it's a piece of history. It's pretty cool.
That's so great.
Lookout Mountain Laboratory was also located in Laurel Canyon. Originally envisioned as a fortified air defense center, this facility by 1947 featured a fully operational movie studio that included sound stages, screening rooms, film processing labs, editing facilities, and an animation department and 17 climate-controlled film vaults. This studio produced approximately 19,000 classified motion pictures over its lifetime, more than all Hollywood studios combined. Lookout Mountain Laboratory apparently had an advanced research and development department that was on the cutting edge of new film technologies such as 3D effects. Holiday luminaries, including John Ford, Jimmy Stewart, Howard Hawks, Ronald Reagan, Bing Crosby, Walt Disney, Hilda Hopper, and Marilyn Monroe, worked at the facility on undisclosed projects. The facility also employed up to 250 producers, directors, technicians, editors, animators, etc., all with top security clearances. Laurel Canyon in the 1950s was home to the leading actors such as Marlon Brando, James Dean, and James Coburn. It was also home to Natalie Wood, who lived in the same home that Cass Elliot would later turn into the Laurel Canyon Party House. Other former Laurel Canyon residents connected to the film industry include W.C. Fields, Mary Astor, Roscoe Arbuckle, Errol Flynn, Orson Welles, and Robert Mitchum. A group that played a key role in promoting the new Laurel Canyon bands was Hollywood's so-called Young Turks. This group included Peter Fonda, Jack Nicholson, Bruce Dern, Dennis Hopper, and Warren Beatty, along with their female counterparts such as Jane Fonda, Nancy Sinatra, and Sharon Tate. Many of these Hollywood stars forged very close bonds with Laurel Canyon musicians, and some purchased homes in Laurel Canyon so that they could live and party among the rock stars. And here we see a little thing from Epix. They're going to put out Laurel Canyon. Everything they touch turned to music. Thanks to the military industrial complex, they should say. So we have Joni Mitchell, Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young, Buffalo Springfield, the Byrds, the Mamas and the Papas, The Doors, Mr. Alice Cooper. And we all know the fake band The Monkees. And Love, The Turtles, Jackson Browne, Linda Ronstadt, J.D. Souther, Eagles, Bonnie Raitt, Little Feat, and the Flying Burrito Brothers.
Moving on to the next name on the list, we find that on December 31, 1943, precisely 42 years before the plane crash that would claim the life of Ricky Nelson.
So with this, we just want to know that there's a lot of strange deaths involved with this whole area, this canyon, people involved with it, plane crashes, mysterious deaths. And there's something to be said about that, because we're talking about the military. And what do they do most proficiently? That's right, take you out. And take, for instance, Ricky Nelson.
A rock and roll star dies in a tragic accident. It's a scenario we've seen many times over the years.
Headline News, I'm Donna Kelly. It was supposed to be a New Year's party in Dallas, but the evening turned somber with word that singer Rick Nelson, the evening's entertainment, had died in a plane crash.
All right now, I learned my lesson well. See, you can't please everyone, so you got to please yourself. People came from miles around, everyone was there. Yoko brought a walrus, there was magic in the air.
Yoko and the Walrus. And of course the Beatles are a part of this. Just think of the song Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. LSD.
Well, we don't have much time left. Does anyone have any idea how much time we do have? Let me confirm quickly a couple rumors with you.
Yes.
One of them, has it ever been settled whether Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds was a code for anything?
It never was, and nobody believes me. I even saw some famous star introducing, I've forgotten who it was, introducing a Lennon McCartney show. And it was Mel Torme saying about how Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds was about LSD. This is the truth. My son came home with a drawing and showed me this strange-looking woman flying around. I said, what is it? He said, it's Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. And I thought, that's beautiful. I immediately wrote a song about it. The song had gone out, the whole album had been published, and somebody noticed that the letters spelt out LSD. And I had no idea about it. And of course, after that, I was checking all the songs to see what the letters spelled out. They didn't spell out anything, none of the others, and it wasn't about that at all, you know.
I don't know about you, but Lennon looks pretty damn high in that clip. Mr. Lennon, let me ask you a question. Are you on drugs?
Yes. We don't have much time left. Does anyone have any idea how much time we do have? Let me confirm quickly a couple rumors with you.
Yeah, I agree. And don't forget, Lennon was assassinated. Another one of those deaths. Well, I can't find it, but the assassin was sitting there afterwards with a copy of A Catcher in a Rye. And if you don't know anything about that, that's a whole nother big rabbit hole to go down. Boom.
As for Nelson, in the mid-1960s, he successfully shed his teen idol image and emerged as a respected pioneer of the country rock wave that Canyonites Jackson Browne, Linda Ronstadt, and the Eagles would soon ride to dizzying heights of commercial success. One future member of the Eagles, Randy Meisner, played in Nelson's Stone Canyon Band. As the name of the band would seem to imply, Nelson had moved to one of the many neighboring canyons, but he had previously lived on Mount Olympus in Laural Canyon, and he and his band were very much a part of the early country rock scene that included bands like the Byrds, Poco, the Flying Burrito Brothers, and the First National Band. Nelson was killed on New Year's Eve, 1985, in a rather unusual plane crash. According to Nelson's Wikipedia entry, the original NTSB investigation long ago stated that the crash was probably due to mechanical problems. The pilots attempted to land in a field after smoke filled the cabin. An examination indicated that a fire originated in the right-hand side of the aft cabin area at or near the floor line. The passengers were killed when the aircraft struck obstacles during the forced landing. The pilots were able to escape through the cockpit windows and survived. Nothing unusual about that, I suppose. Shit happens.
And we all can't forget about John Denver. Is that his name?
Military brat from Roswell named John Duchendorf. Henry John Duchendorf Jr., better known as John Denver, was born in Roswell, New Mexico. A few years later, the town of Roswell would make a name for itself and become something of a tourist destination. But that is not really the focus here, though it should be noted that Henry John Duchendorf Sr. might well have known a little something about that incident, given that he was a career U.S. Air Force officer assigned to the Roswell Army Airfield.
I'm not sure you recognize the gentleman on my right. He's my father, Dutch Duchendorf. He's been a pilot all his life. He taught me how to fly.
Well, Rocky Mountain High. Is John Denver an alien or Duchendorf and Flugenheimer? What's his name?
After spending his childhood being frequently uprooted, as did many of our cast of characters, Denver attended Texas Tech University in the early 1960s. In 1964, he apparently heard the call of the Pied Piper and promptly dropped out of school and headed for L.A. Once there, he joined up with the Chad Mitchell Trio, the group from which Jim McGinn had recently departed to co-found the Byrds. By November 1966, Denver was front and center at the so-called Riot on the Sunset Strip, alongside folks like Peter Fonda, Sal Mineo, and a popular husband and wife duo known as Sonny and Cher.
We have Peter Fonda, but we'll get back to him in a moment. For now, let's just take a look at his sister. Sweet little girl. And here we have Sonny and Cher down at the Sunset Strip. And just a side note, Sonny Bono ran into a tree. But once you get into the actual amount of deaths surrounding this group of people, then it strikes you as just very odd. There's just no way. But we'll have to get into it more.
All right, you kids, break it up.
These are not dangerous revolutionaries in a beleaguered city under martial law. These are teenagers on the Sunset Strip in Los Angeles, California, on a peaceful night. Irresponsible, wild, beat, protest youths with nowhere to go, nothing to do, no goal in life. Just searching for one thing they've demanded throughout the ages: the right of self-expression and recognition. What you see here is happening all over the world. And in every country, the question is the same: what to do about the youth problem?
I'm going down to the strip tonight. I'm not on a stay-home trip tonight.
Buffalo Springfield. It was the group's only hit single, and it is remembered today as the quintessential protest song of the 1960s. That song, of course, is For What It's Worth. As a protest song, however, it doesn't quite measure up. Despite what is commonly believed today, the song was not a commentary on anti-war demonstrations. Far from it. The event under consideration was the so-called Riot on the Sunset Strip, which involved about 1,000 kids who were demonstrating against the imposition of a curfew and the announcement that a popular club, Pandora's Box, at 8118 Sunset Boulevard, was slated to be closed.
There's something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there, telling me I got to beware. I think it's time we stop, children. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. There's battle lines being drawn. Nobody's right if everybody's wrong. Young people speaking their minds are getting so much resistance from behind. Time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. What a field day for the heat. 1,000 people in the street, singing songs and carrying signs. Mostly say hooray for our side. It's time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Paranoia strikes deep into your life, it will creep. It starts when you're always afraid. Step out of line, the man come and take you away. You better stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going. You better stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going. You better stop now. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going. You better stop. Children, what's that sound?
The Sunset Strip is peaceful this Sunday morning, the aftermath of a terrifying night. Once this glittering street that winds through 2.5 miles of America's most expensive real estate was a meeting place of movie stars, politicians, and business tycoons. World-famous restaurants and nightclubs such as Ciro's, the Crescendo, and the Plymouth House were crammed with tourists and natives who hoped to catch a glimpse of Gary Cooper, Marilyn Monroe, or even Clark Gable. These names, these places, are now gone. They have been replaced by the long-haired, the unwashed, the rebellious. This building was once the Los Angeles Conservatory of Music. It is now the Whiskey A-Go-Go. The Sunset Strip is filled with names like The Door, Iron Butterfly, Loving Spoonful, and Smokestack Lightning.
It's simply just not enough to have the media, musicians, and actors on your side. You must have the youth.
As people began to clog the street, finally, it stopped altogether. Then, it happened. The first shove, the first fist thrown. It would matter little for the next 5 hours who was responsible. As a last resort, the mayor asked the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department to aid the police in quelling the riot. They moved in quickly, using tear gas and billy clubs to push back and break up the mob.
And the story wouldn't be complete without the mind fuck of Timothy Leary, LSD, and the grand old experiment on the whole U.S. population, essentially. But hey, what do I know?
Here is Dr. Timothy Leary. When, Doctor, did you first start experimenting with LSD?
6 years ago.
And that was during the time that you were on the faculty?
I was teaching psychology at Harvard. I'd been a psychologist for 15 years.
Right.
And I'd come to the sorry conclusion that psychology wasn't doing much to solve the emotional or the mental problems of the human race, and particularly the American people.
Dr. Leary, how do you evaluate your influence on the increase in the use of hallucinogenic drugs by college students?
Well, I want to make it clear that I didn't invent LSD. God made LSD, the evolutionary process. LSD has been used in its plant form for thousands of years. Nor have I been a pusher or a advocate of LSD. I've been in the position of a prophet who's been pointing out to his fellow man that this was going to happen. 7, 6, 5 years ago, several of us from Harvard went down to Washington. We told the FDA, hey, listen, there's going to be an LSD boom. It can't be stopped. It's going to be used. It's going to take over. You better be ready for it.
I give the CIA a total credit for sponsoring and initiating the entire consciousness movement, counterculture events of the 1960s.
Dr. Timothy Leary.
Up MK Ultra.
Yes.
MK Ultra was a government program run by the Central Intelligence Agency. Originally started as something called Bluebird in 1948-49, morphed into Artichoke, and then in 1952 became MK Ultra. It was a mind control program, a brainwashing program. The CIA was trying to learn how to control people's behavior without their knowledge. Now, this is all came out in Senate and congressional hearings in the 70s. It was exposed, but nobody knew about it until 1974 when Seymour Hersh, the New York Times reporter, reported it on the front page of the paper. So their main objective was to commit or to create what they called hypno-programmed assassins, people who would kill on command, popularly known as Manchurian candidates, after a book that was written in 1962 and later became a movie and then a movie again. The people would be, through drugs and hypnotism, the objective was to get people to go and commit an act of murder against their moral code and have no memory of their programming and be amnesic even of the act after the fact often. That was just that was their main goal, but they were also trying to create couriers, people, military people that they could implant messages, send them, across dangerous areas where there were, at that time it was the Vietnam War, and deliver messages and then have them wiped from their memory in case they were captured. They had all kinds of objectives. So Roger Smith was supervising Manson when he became he was able to do exactly what the MK Ultra program had been trying to create and do for, at that point, about 15, 17 years. When it was all exposed in the 70s, and there were these hearings, first the Rockefeller Commission hearings and the church hearings, and then finally Senators Ted Kennedy and Daniel Inouye held hearings. The CIA admitted that they had done this, but no one would say exactly what they did. All the records had been destroyed when the two people who ran it, Richard Helms, who had become the director of the CIA in the 60s, and Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, who was kind of the mad scientist who had supervised they had safe houses in San Francisco, New York, Los Angeles, where they would experiment on people that were lured into these apartments and houses that were either look like brothels or hippie communes or whatever. And the people who were working at the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic that was run by another Smith, which makes it a little confusing, but Dr. David Smith, who founded it, he had given an office to a scientist named Jolly West, Louis J. West, who was, when the hearings occurred in the 70s, identified as a top MK Ultra researcher. He was an academic, come out of the military, had been at the Oklahoma University of Oklahoma, sorry, and then UCLA running the psychiatric divisions. He denied ever being involved in MK Ultra. And this was one of the moments, I think it was 2001, when, things really kind of shook the course of my reporting. Was I learned that West had been at the same place that Manson was in the Haight in the summer that Manson became exactly what the CIA was trying to create. And I knew, actually, I'd interviewed West about 7 years before for a story I did about celebrity stalkers, the people who were obsessed with stars and then only to kill them or try to kill them. And he was an expert in violence, hypnotism, brainwashing, and he was the chair of the psychiatry department at UCLA at that point. He was dead when his name came up in the Manson story.
They want to be able to use drugs to interrogate people. And the drug that they're obsessed with, obviously, is LSD. And, this goes all the way back. Like LSD and Jolly West go hand in hand like peanut butter and jelly, Eric.
They needed some girls for it. And apparently, again, this guy helped provide some.
Right. Now, the thing with Manson and the girls is that Jolly West believes that Manson, of all people, learned how to hypnotize people from a guy who ran a nightclub on Sunset Boulevard. And Manson learns how to hypnotize them and goes up there and through sensory deprivation, through the use of LSD, through the use of his own hypnotic techniques, which is what Jolly West is trying to master. Apparently Manson's already mastered it. And what Jolly West was told by another psychiatrist, it was told by David Smith of Haight-Ashbury. He was told that Manson was able to hypnotize and do his thing because it worked on young girls who were susceptible to this, who hadn't fully formed their brains yet and weren't mature enough. In other words, the techniques that West were trying were on the wrong types of people. He was trying to do it on military people who were older, and Manson was successful because he did it on 18 and 17-year-old girls, according to David Smith, which is very interesting because the technique involved, there is some sensory deprivation, there is some isolation, there is LSD, there is hypnosis by Manson. So it's all four of these things together allows Manson to control these girls.
He was great. He was unreal. Really, really good. He had this kind of music that nobody else was doing. I thought he really had something crazy, something great. He was like a living poet. Neil Young, sharing his thoughts on Charles Manson. By the time Manson shifted base from Rustic Canyon to an old ranch in Chatsworth, he began formulating the notion that he and his followers had to prepare themselves for a race war with Black America. Barney Hoskins, writing in Hotel California. We must now temporarily relocate to Rustic Canyon, which lies about 9 miles west of Laural Canyon in the Hollywood Hills. It was there, in Lower Rustic Canyon, that Beach Boy Dennis Wilson lived in the late 1960s in what Steve Gaines described in Heroes and Villains as a palatial log cabin-style house at 14400 Sunset Boulevard that had once belonged to humorist Will Rogers. The expansive home sat on 3 lushly landscaped acres. In the summer of 1968, as is fairly well known, Charlie Manson and various members of his entourage moved in with Wilson. Considerably less well known is that Charles Tex Watson, for reasons that have never really been explained, was already living there. As many as 24 members of Manson's clan spent the entire summer there, with Wilson picking up the tab for all expenses. The Mansonites, mostly nubile young women, regularly drove Wilson's expensive cars and demolished at least one of them. Dennis didn't seem to mind. He was busy recording Manson in brother Brian's home studio and inviting fellow musicians like Neil Young over to the house to hear Charlie perform. Young was so impressed that he urged Mo Austin to sign him. Dennis would later claim that he had destroyed all the Manson demo tapes, that he remembered almost nothing of his time with Charlie and the family, and that he certainly knew nothing about the Tate and LaBianca murders, which were committed in the summer of 1969, about a year after the family had vacated the Rustic Canyon residence. At some point in time, though, Wilson had a change of heart and decided that maybe he did indeed know a little something about the murders. "I know why Charles Manson did what he did," said Dennis. "Someday I'll tell the world. I'll write a book and explain why he did it." That book, however, was never written, and Wilson's story, if indeed he had one, was never told. Instead, Dennis Wilson drowned under questionable circumstances on December 28, 1983, in the marina where his beloved yacht had previously been docked. But this story isn't really about Dennis Wilson. It's about Charlie Manson and his alleged motive for allegedly ordering the Tate and LaBianca murders. According to the helter-skelter scenario popularized by lead prosecutor Vincent Bugliosi, who later penned a wildly disinformational book on the JFK assassination, Manson was hoping to spark an apocalyptic race war. It is said that Charlie believed that America's black population would prevail over whitey, but that, having won the war, the victors would be incapable of governing themselves. But that, alas, is when Charlie and his retinue would emerge from the shadows to take command. According to Barney Hoskins, Manson began formulating his race war theory during his stay in Rustic Canyon.
So maybe it's looking like Manson isn't as crazy as we were once thinking. Maybe he's just part of all this. He was a guy who wanted to be a pop star, rock star, whatever you want to call it. And they didn't want to let him do it. They wanted him to be kind of a dirty cult leader and do a little counterculture revolution, blacks and whites. So Charlie didn't get his way. They kind of bury that with the whole Brian Wilson, Dennis Wilson connection. But yeah, it's just everywhere.
Did you see Manson's interview? Did you see that? Was that too funny? This guy is fucking gone. It's like 1986 now. He's been in the hole for 17 fucking years. You know, he was already sick going in, you know? Yeah, he's on a comeback. Yeah. Let's leave him alone and let him talk to fucking God. Oh man, they pulled him out and they go, "Charlie, why'd you do it?" And he goes, "I heard the album. I heard that goddamn White Album. Why don't we do it the road?" What do you think he was saying, man? No one will be watching us. And you're sitting there going, "It's a fucking album! You were on acid, Manson! It's a fucking album!" You would have gotten the same message out of the Monkees, you fucking dickhead. Don't you hear what he's saying, man? Hey, hey, we're the Monkees. Hey, hey, we're the Monkees. People say we monkey around. How clear does he have to say it, man? Last train to Clarksville, Whitey. It's the Monkees! They weren't even a real group, you fuck!
So now Manson's ranting and ravings could be thought of as, hey, I know this is a psychological operation. I was supposed to be part of it, and you guys turned on me. And so now I'm in here rotting in jail, and now you think I'm crazy. That's why I got all this crap on my head.
God, I guess you're my best friend, being I invented you.
You believe in God, Charlie?
Sure, I believe in myself. Why wouldn't I? Which one?
Are you Jesus Christ?
Which Jesus? There's all kinds of Jesuses. There's a black Jesus down in Florida. He's having a good time. There's a Mexican Jesus in Mexico. I mean, there's all kinds of there's a Jewish Jesus. I mean, Jesus, you know. There's all kinds of Jesus coming back everywhere. And nothing can stop it. It's a consciousness that lives in your mind. You know that?
Okay, so we're pretty much set up. You got a music scene. You got your actors, your influence. The media's on board. But next we're looking for a style. What does it look like? How does it feel? What's a hippie? Hippie, hippie, hippie.
Describes the scene at the Sunset Strip clubs when the Byrds were playing. We had them all. We had Jack Nicholson dancing. We had Peter Fonda dancing with Odetta. We had Vito and his Freakers. Following that brief mention by Dixon, Gottlieb briefly explains to readers that Vito and his Freakers were an acid-drenched extended family of brain-damaged cohabitants. And that, in an incredibly self-indulgent 489-page tome, is the only mention you will find of Vito and his Freakers, despite the fact that by just about all other accounts, the group dismissed as brain-damaged cohabitants played a crucial role in the early success of Crosby's band, and in the early success of Arthur Lee's band, and in the early success of Frank Zappa's band, and in the early success of Jim Morrison's band, but especially in the early success of David Crosby's band. As Barry Miles noted in his biography of Frank Zappa, the Byrds were closely associated with Vito and the Freaks, Vito Pellicas, his wife Sue, and Carl Franzoni, the leaders of a group of about 35 dancers whose antics enlivened the Byrds' early gigs. In Waiting for the Sun, Barney Hoskins wrote that the early success of the Byrds and other bands was due in no small part to the roving troupe of self-styled freaks led by ancient beatnik Vito Pellicas and his trusty, lusty sidekick, Carl Franzoni. Albin Snoopy Pfisterer, former drummer and keyboardist for the band Love, went further still, claiming that Vito actually got the Byrds together. As I remember, they did a lot of rehearsing at his pad. According to various other accounts, the Byrds did indeed utilize Vito's pad as a rehearsal studio, as did Arthur Lee's band. More importantly, the Freaks drew the crowds into the clubs to see the fledgling bands perform. But as important as their contribution was to helping launch the careers of the Laurel Canyon bands, Vito and his Freakers were notable for something else as well. According to Barry Miles, writing in his book Hippie, the first hippies in Hollywood, perhaps the first hippies anywhere, were Vito, his wife Sue, Captain Fuck, and their group of about 35 dancers. Calling themselves freaks, they lived a semi-communal life and engaged in sex orgies and free-form dancing whenever they could. Some of those who were on the scene at the time agree with Miles' assessment that Vito and his troupe were indeed the very first hippies. Arthur Lee, for example, boasted that they started the whole hippie thing, Vito, Carl, Sue, Beetle Bob, Brian, and me. One of David Crosby's fellow Byrds, Chris Hillman, also credited the strange group with being at the forefront of the hippie movement. Carl and all those guys were way ahead of everyone on hippiedom fashion. Ray Manzarek of The Doors remembered them as well. There were these guys named Carl and Vito who had a dance troupe of gypsy freaks. They were let in for free because they were these quintessential hippies, which was great for tourists.
So if Vito and the Freakers was the spark that set the fire to the hippie movement, what other fads and trends have been orchestrated? Please don't tell me Hammer Time was one of them.
As important as the Freaks were to building an audience for the new Laurel Canyon bands, there was another group that played a key role as well, Hollywood's so-called Young Turks. Like the Freaks, the Turks became an immediate and constant presence on the newly emerging Sunset Strip scene. And as with the Freaks, their presence on the Strip was heavily promoted by the media. Locals and tourists alike knew where to go to gawk at the Freaks, and as an added bonus, quite possibly rub shoulders with the likes of Peter Fonda, Jack Nicholson, Bruce Dern, Dennis Hopper, and Warren Beatty, along with their female counterparts, such as Jane Fonda, Nancy Sinatra, and Sharon Tate. And as with the Freaks, the Turks were also instrumental in distracting attention away from the less-than-stellar musicianship on the stage. After all, young men offered the chance to see Jane Mansfield in the flesh probably didn't even notice whether there was a band on the stage at all. Mansfield, by the way, like Mansonites Susan Atkins and Bobby Beausoleil, had direct ties to Anton LaVey and his Church of Satan. Many of these young and glamorous Hollywood stars forged very close bonds with the Laurel Canyon musicians. Some of them, including Peter Fonda, found homes in the canyon so that they could live, work, and party among the rock stars, and in their free time, pass around John Phillips' wife Michelle to just about every swinging dick in the canyon, including Jack Nicholson, Dennis Hopper, Warren Beatty, Roman Polanski, and Gene Clark of the Byrds.
Yeah, so I told you, the mamas and the papas thing, it's going to keep coming up. It's worse, and worse.
Some of them never left. Jack Nicholson, to this day, lives in a spacious estate just off the portion of Mulholland Drive that lies between Laurel Canyon and Coldwater Canyon. Not far west of Nicholson's property, which now includes the neighboring estate formerly owned by Marlon Brando, sits the longtime home of Warren Beatty. From the symbiotic relationship between Laurel Canyon actors and Laurel Canyon musicians arose a series of feature films that are now considered countercultural classics. One such film was The Trip, 1967, an unintentionally hilarious attempt to create a cinematic facsimile of an LSD trip. Written by, of all people, Jack Nicholson.
Here's Johnny!
The movie starred fellow Turks Peter Fonda, Dennis Hopper, and Bruce Dern. Seated in the director's chair was Roger Corman, who, throughout his career, worked side by side with David Crosby's dad on no less than 23 feature films.
I'm Peter Fonda. We've just finished making a movie dealing with the most talked about subject of the day, LSD. I honestly believe it will be today's most talked about motion picture.
The name of the picture is The Trip.
Here goes.
Gives off an orange cloud of light that just flows right out over the
city. Beauty you cannot believe inundates you.
Your world, the people world, is fragmented.
Distorted. Passion is a rainbow of ecstasy.
The messengers of death pursue.
Terrify you.
I'm gonna die, man. Oh no. Oh, I don't want to die. Now it's just.
If that happens to you again, you go ahead and go with it. Just go ahead and die. Whatever happens.
The wildest of pleasures possess you.
Blow your mind.
All these folks gathered nearly simultaneously along the narrow, winding roads of Laurel Canyon. They came from across the country. They came even though, at the time, there was no music industry in Los Angeles. They came even though, at the time, there was no live music scene to speak of. They came even though, in retrospect, there was no discernible reason for them to do so. And if we look at all these names that the Wrecking Crew was involved with, it makes much more sense why Mr. Uncle Sam wants you not to notice any of this shit. Not to notice that they started the war. Not to notice that they infiltrated the opposition. Not to notice that they turned a war protest into a psychological operation on us, the willing, the American people. And not to notice that we ourselves are at war. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Edge of the world in all of Western civilization. The sun may rise in the east, at least it's settled in a final location. It's understood that Hollywood sells Californication.
Get out of here. Unbelievable.